So our very first session is on conflict management, and we're pleased to introduce our first speaker, who is Dana Bernstein. Dana has a master's degree in legal studies and dispute resolution from Montclair State University. She's also obtained her project management professional, the PMP certificate. Dana has taught contract law, negotiation, and pre- and post-conference management at Kean University. She has over a dozen articles published in various magazines and newspapers on significant issues of key issues of meeting planning. Dana has been working in the field of conflict management for 20 years. And as if that weren't enough, she's also a Girl Scout volunteer. Dan has been a troop leader, a troop treasurer, service unit treasurer, and service unit secretary in Central and Southern New Jersey. Let's give a warm Girl Scout welcome to Dana Bernstein.
Good morning. You have a copy of the slides because there's a conflict between the two things, and obviously they're not communicating. So please refer to your handout as we go through. So the first slide in your deck is, how do you win at conflict resolution? I mean, no one wants to lose, right? Everyone wants to go into a conflict and say, yes, I have it. So right now, we're going to talk about how to do that. You might consider thinking of a conflict that you currently have and use that in your mind, so when we're talking about strategies, you can perhaps apply what you need to know, the strategies you're learning towards the conflict that you have. There are tons and tons of articles on conflict management on the web. I've looked through them, but they're all theory. They're like, okay, step A is conflict, these are the 5 steps to this, these are the 5 steps to that, but no one talks about how to. And that's what we're going to do today. We are going to dive into how to deal with conflict when it comes up, how to deal with difficult people when they just want to stir the pot and they just love that argument. So we're going to break that apart. Okay, being able to deal with conflict is an outcome of many things that are a part of the Girl Scout approach in our badge work and our journey. However, even though we've dealt with conflict, we still get stuck. Conflicts are time-consuming, both emotionally and physically, real time. But if you think back on issues that you've had 5 years ago, they're probably inconsequential right now. Most conflict is resolvable. So, think about what your definition of conflict is. I looked it up. It's hostility, division, disagreement, incompatible goals. Are these definitions the most empowering thoughts when you look at someone with whom you have a conflict? What frame of mind do you get into when hearing these definitions? So for the next half an hour or so, I'm going to ask you to flip it positive and think of conflict as a way to bring us together. With healthy conflict resolution strategies, you're going to get better communication, better human connections, and you're going to teach our Girl Scouts to rise above the issues and focus on solution finding. Being a sister to every Girl Scout applies to us as well, right? What we don't like about conflict are those conversations, because they are uncomfortable, and that is probably not going to change. Although conflict is uncomfortable for many people, the resolution does feel good. So my personal definition of conflict, there's 4 definitions, is conflict resides in people's heads and not in reality. If you think of the last time you got into a conflict with someone, say your mother said something, or your best friend said something, or your daughter said something, or your husband, you would look at that conflict or that conversation very differently, because it's the person who's saying it sometimes and not exactly the conflict. So my mother can push a button in me, or my daughter can, but my best friend might not be able to push that same button in that same conversation. So conflict does reside in your head and how you visualize it. So the 4 definitions that I have are: conflict is power sources at play, their perception of your intentions, their attitude towards the actual message, both how you communicate and what you communicate, and then how you make them feel, and also how they make you feel. So it goes back and forth. Conflict resolution is not a search for facts about the past, because you're not going to resolve that, and you're probably not going to agree to that. What you need to do is you have to think forward, and the from now on is that conversation you want to have. So first up is power. It's always a conflict a factor in conflict. And to win any resolution, you have to neutralize or at least acknowledge the power difference between people. No one is equal in any relationship. You have different backgrounds, different education. Men and women look at conflict very differently. Your self-esteem actually plays a role in how you manage conflict, because sometimes people with a lower self-esteem might not, and you're going up against someone who has a high self-esteem. There's two different power things at play. Think of parenting. Parenting is always about a conflict. You have the power, your child does not have the power, and they're vying for the power. They're vying for that control. But if you take the power out, or at least acknowledge it, you can de-escalate a lot of that conflict. So power examples are Sue is a leader of Girl Scouts for 10 years, and her co-leader, and she's willing to engage in any conflict, she's ready to get at it, and the other leader avoids it. The first leader has 10, 15 years in leadership. She's been a Girl Scout, she's embedded in management, and the person she has a conflict is not. So the power source, even though it's in your head, that 10, 15 years in Girl Scouts does make the power source unequal. Like I have, my SUMs are 25 plus years in Girl Scouting. So if I had a conflict with them, automatically I'd think, oh, I'm not going to win because they've been in Girl Scouts for so long, or they have this experience, or they have that experience. You're not going to change that actual experience, but you can neutralize it because you do have a say. Other examples is, your boss and you might have a difference of opinion, and you might want to accommodate because it makes it easier. Your teacher tells you something about your child and you don't agree. I mean, conflict is all over the place. The other thing that plays a factor in how to resolve and approach conflict is your personality styles. And this is a theory slide. So there's 5 personality styles. You can avoid, which is I lose and you lose. And sometimes that's okay if you need a cooling down period. So it's not always a bad thing to avoid. You just don't want to do it for too long because it will make it fester. You can accommodate, which is I lose and then you win. And accommodating isn't always so bad if what you're fighting over doesn't really mean that much to you. Like if you have this thing of 5 conflicts that you have with someone, and the first 3, like I don't care, she can have the argument, she could win that piece, but the last 2 are something that's important to you, it's okay to accommodate on those 3. And then you work on the 2 that you don't agree with. So sometimes accommodating is not so bad. The third personality style is to collaborate, is to work together. So here's my solution to the problem, and that's their solution to the problem, and you maybe look at it as these are the only 2. But there's more than 2 solutions, so expanding the pie and having a collaborative approach to conflict resolution is important. There's always more than one way to slice the pie. Compromise, I win some, I lose some, and compete, which is I win and you lose. So say you're a certain way. So I'm going up against someone who's a competitor. I might try to be a little bit more like, I'm going to just, she's a competitor, and I know it's going to be tough, so I'm going to raise the stakes, and I'm going to be a little bit tougher. And that keeps ratcheting it up. So you want to know what your personality style is, and you want to know what their personality style is. You want to know what pushes your button in a negative way. So if I go up against someone who's competitive, I might just say, all right, I know they're competitive, and I need to ratchet down their personality style so we can actually come to a resolution. So one of the slides you have in your deck is, my therapist told me that a great way to get rid of my anger is to write letters to the people I hate and burn them. I did that, and now I don't know what to do with the letters. You have to deal with your emotions. So managing your emotions, perception, and style is the first step. So there's 3 reasons why you get upset. So think of the last time you all got upset. Just in your head, like really something that got your goat. You have an unfulfilled expectation. You expected something to happen and it didn't. You have a thwarted intention. You wanted to go this way, but you ended up that way. Or you have an undelivered communication. Those are the 3 reasons why you get upset. So either you need to deal with the expectation or communicate it, Or same with the intention. You have to deal with the, hey, I wanted to do this, but we got to move to that. So if you can understand why you're upset, you may be better able to resolve the conflict. Because you can't resolve or win a resolution when you're stuck in anger, when you're powerless, or when you don't have predetermined goals of where you want to end up. Your goal is to get the other side to the middle, because conflict cannot survive without your participation. You are never going to be successful in getting to the middle unless you bridge both of your interests together. You're both committed. You're both ready to resolve the issue. If I'm ready and you're not ready, nothing is going to happen. We both have to want to do something. You want to know what they want. You want to know what you want, but more importantly, you want to know what the other side wants, because if you can give them more of what they want, you can get more of what you want. So you want to look at it from a 360 point of view. You want to equalize power when possible. If you believe that there are beneficial results, the other person might be able to resolve the conflict with you. They might be more willing. You want to disarm, deflect, and diffuse any emotions. You're a leader. Your goal is to not ratchet it up, but to bring it down. When they come at you with language that might be a little bit, you want to ratchet down that conversation so you can get to what happened and how do we go forward from here, instead of having the words get in the way or the emotions. One of the most important things to do, though, is make them feel safe. Create a safe environment. You want to have specific and measurable goals to whatever the resolution is going to be. Strengthen your interpersonal relationships. Listen actively. Pay attention to nonverbal communication. If they're standing like this or like this, that shows something. So you want to kind of ratchet that down a little bit and pay attention to that. And also on yourself. You don't want to be standing like this and trying to say, well, I want to resolve this conflict, and this is what it is, because this does not look like I want to resolve conflict. You want to be mindful. You want to look at people in the eye. You want to be present. You want to be in the moment. You don't want to be like, oh, I got to get the kids, I got to do this, I got to do that. You want to think about being with that person. If you're having problems, change the venue. Move, take a walk, take a break. When things get too hot, just work out. Maybe this space is not the most comfortable for us. It's not a safe space for us to be in, so maybe we'll grab a coffee or we'll relax. Build trust. If they don't trust you and you don't trust them, nothing's going to happen. You have to have that level of we're working together. And remember, your interest is always the Girl Scouts, is making a good journey for them. So that's the vantage point, is we are all on the same page with that end result is these are our girls. We want to make a nice journey for them. So if you can focus on getting to all these small yeses from your conflicts, the smaller the yeses, you start off small, you get yes, 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 yeses. People want those small yeses, and then they won't back out. So start with, working with them to get agreement on the smaller items first, and then it's a bigger springboard going forward. Conflicts linger when goals aren't established, when the cost of maintaining the conflict is not discussdiscussed, when the benefits are not certain, if the other side wants to punish you, or if someone else thinks that, oh, maybe, my SUM or someone else higher up in Girl Scouts is going to resolve this to my favor, or you're being positional. So you want to start acknowledging what conflict is, your role, your personality. You want to own your piece of conflict, because conflict is, they have a conflict with you as well as you with them. So you want to own whatever it is that's your piece. The first step in dealing with conflict, though, is to think backwards. Reflect before you choose to talk to someone with whom you have a conflict. Identify what is it that you want to change, their behavior, something like that. Decide on your approach and control your emotions. Talk about trust. List your ideal outcome. You want to decide your BATNA. A BATNA is a best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So if you're selling something for $10, you know your walking away point is 7. So if someone offers you 6, you know you're not going to take it because it's not a good deal. So you always, in any negotiation, and conflict resolution is a negotiation, In any negotiation, you want to have that BATNA. You want to have your walking away point. What is the minimum I'm going to accept? Then you want to figure out their needs. Because knowing your stuff is knowing your stuff. But if you can figure out what they want you to change, you could start bridging your interests together. Okay, I might have done this, or I might have done that, or I think they're going to ask this of me. So it's really just mapping out your side and their side and being prepared. And remember, the outcome in Girl Scouts is giving the girls a great Girl Scouting experience. So the conflict usually lies in how do we get there. The most important thing, though, in conflict resolution is maintaining relationships. You want to maintain the relationship with them because you're going to see them in the supermarket, they're going to be your co-leader, your girls are probably friends, so that's really important, is to maintain that relationship. You also want to maintain a relationship with yourself, right? Because you don't want to wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, what a bad decision I just did, and then like rethink it, and then you get more angry that you made a really poor choice. If you're trying to address conflict, it means that the relationship or the outcome matters. So keep focused on what does a good outcome look like. And again, focus on the girls. So we talked about power. So now we're going to talk about the people issues, because that's really what it is a people issue. You have, according to the definition that we talked about, is the perception, the communication, and emotions. So the first issue is perception. Perception, since most conflicts are based in different interpretations of the facts, you need to understand both sides of how people look at conflict. Perception's also about how you feel about yourself. And perception can be also about the other person and not the conflict at hand. Again, you can't always change the perception, but you can keep the conversation focused on the issues and the from now on. This is what we're going to do. There is, as perception, the story and the what happened. So what happened is X, but the story I create about it is Y. What happened is leader A always has last-minute problems and can't complete tasks. The story is leader B thinks in her head that he feels or she feels that she is the dumping ground because leader A always has issues, and I have to pick up the slack because leader A can't do it, and blah, blah, blah. And at home, I have to pick up the slack because my husband this and my kids that. And leader B has this story going on in her head that she is put upon because leader A asked her to do something. That's a story. You're not a therapist, but if you could make the other person feel safe and say, hey, I feel like I'm a problem solver. It's my nature. And when you mention that you have an issue, I feel like you're asking me to solve it. Maybe that's not the case, but that's how I feel. And if you could be honest about how you feel about something and your perception of it, that's breaking away at the wall a little bit and getting to a better understanding. So conflict can be solved by better communication, maybe some timelines, maybe in this situation, other parents pitching in. The focus has to be on the Scouts and their journey. When you both keep that in the forefront, the conflict becomes less personal. I have one of the slides in your deck is all about perception. So you could read that, on your own and kind of understand that everybody has their own story. And when they are feeling safe, they will then share that story with you, and then that can break down some of the barriers. The second people issue is communication. The other side might be grandstanding and planning their own response. Understanding of the other person's side does not mean that you agree with it. Speak only about yourselves and how you feel. And the most important thing about communication is tell people what you want. Be specific. Tell them what you want them to do and not what you don't want them to do. So instead of saying, don't be late to a meeting, ask them if we could agree to be on time. So everyone close your eyes. Close your eyes. Okay. I am not going to ask you to see a pink elephant. Not the trunk, not the color pink, not the sound an elephant makes. I am not going to ask you to see it. Now, what do you see? green elephant. But I wanted you to see a green giraffe. Did I communicate that? No. It's the same. You could open up your eyes, unless you want to keep them closed. So, yeah. But you need to tell people what you want them to do and not what you don't want them to do, because they're going to see that pink elephant because you're saying, oh, yeah. So clearly communicate what you want them to do. And no gossiping. Don't gossip. Don't tell other people about the problem. Don't tell another parent, oh, Dana did this, or oh, this one happened. Because when you gossip, you break that trust. And then the other person's not going to want to talk to you because they're going to be like, oh, this one gossiped, and now we're going to have a resolution, and then that's going to be all over. So have your conversations privately. It's a very small world. Reduce defensive communication. Use descriptive language. You appear to be. It seems that. Show empathy, understanding. Treat the other side with respect. Be non-dogmatic. Show confidence, and make eye contact. Smile and nod your head. It means that you understand. It doesn't mean that I agree with you. It just means that I'm acknowledging you. And go to the gym and drop your butts, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to say, I agree with you, but, and then you just lost the whole conversation. I agree with you, and. I agree with you, and builds. I agree with you, but will shut everyone down. The words although and however, also the same. So go to the gym, lose your butts, and keep the conversation always going forward and inclusive. Build on what they want so they're not shutting you down automatically. Build good intent. You will give off energy to the conversation one way or the other. Make it good conversation. Make it good intent. So when you have to give tough feedback, you want to check your intent. You want to make sure you're not doing it to get even or take someone down a notch. So check that when you're talking to somebody. You want to be specific. Don't say, you didn't do a very good job, or you did a very good job. That's not helpful. You want to describe versus label. When getting tough feedback, it's kind of hard, because sometimes it hurts, and you want to make sure that you're ready. You want to summarize to confirm your understanding of that tough feedback, and you also want to treat it like a gift. So if your friend is telling you, oh, this is how I feel, or this is something, you want to treat it like they're doing you a favor by telling you, because not everyone has the nerve to walk up to you and say, oh, Dana, this is your bad side. So treat it as a gift and say thank you. The third people issue is emotion. Facing conflict can be a frustrating and intimidating process. So you want to acknowledge the emotions that go into it. You don't want to dismiss anybody's feelings. Again, use symbolic gestures, apologies, expression of sympathy. Own your piece, own your part of it. I had a bad day and I was not so nice, or I had something else on my mind and I didn't come across the way I wanted to come across. So you want to talk about the emotions and deal with it. And again, controlling your emotions, unfulfilled expectation, thwarted intention, or an undelivered communication. Where are you in your emotions in your upset? And deal with that first, and then communicate it. I expected this. I didn't communicate it well, but this is what I expected. My intention was to give the girls this, but it got moved, and I just was caught off guard. Talk about how you feel. Okay, so we talked about you, and then we talked about them. But what if you're dealing with a pot stirrer, someone who just loves it, just gets in there and wants to just, oh, I see a lot of nodding the heads. Yeah, well, you're not going to change them. You're going to change you. You're not going to change them. And that's where you have to stand, is that they will always love the fight. And your job is to diffuse, deflect, disarm, just bring it down a notch, because their words and how they like to do things not going to change. So you want to avoid getting frustrated and emotional when dealing with those difficult leaders, or else you're not going to make progress. You're not going to like the person or their behavior all the time, but you still have to resolve the conflict. It's in the interest of our girls that you resolve it. The girls are watching. How are you going to work with your co-leader or someone that's difficult? How are you going to be that example? So you want to let the difficult person exit gracefully, exit an argument gracefully so they can save some face. Always keep it focused on the scouts. Don't worry about their language, just notch it down and worry about how do we do this for the scouts and keep refocusing them back to what matters. There is a difference between a tough conflict, which is content, and someone who's being deliberately adversarial. So I have a list, and I will share it, I guess, after we'll send an email of how to deal with difficult people. But reframing is always a good thing. So if Sally, my co-leader, doesn't like how we run this troop, she could just quit. Like, how would you rephrase that? Anyone want to raise your hand? How would you rephrase, hey, she didn't like it, just quit, I don't care. Anyone? Go ahead.
Sally, what suggestions would you have to running the meetings that maybe improvement funds?
Yeah. How do you reframe it? Anyone else? All right. I understand you have goals for the troop. Let's come up with another way to satisfy them. But exactly what you said. It's how do you take the sting out of that conversation? If Pam is giving the silent treatment and you're trying to get her answer to questions and all she's saying is yes or no, how do you get her to draw out another answer aside from yes or no? Anyone?
You never ask me yes or no. You always get something that they have to give in response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how do you do that?
I understand that we're doing this. What do you think we can do to make it better?
Yeah. Your listening skills are critical when the other person doesn't feel like they have a voice. Make them feel safe. If she's giving yes or no answers, maybe she just doesn't feel safe, and then allow her to feel safe and say, exactly what you said. How would you do it? How do you feel? Let's have a conversation. But making them feel safe draws out more information, and more information is good. So, how to actually negotiate a resolution. There is a book called Getting to Yes by Fisher and Ury. Anyone know that book? Raise your hands if you know it. All right, so it's an awesome book. They give you ideas of principled negotiation, which is the approach to commit yourself to reaching a solution based on principle and not pressure. And there are 4 ways to do this. You separate the people from the problem, you focus on interests and not positions, invent options for mutual gain, and use objective criteria. So separating the people from the problem is focus on the issue and not the person. You both have a problem, and it's not productive to blame the other person. You want to talk about the perception, the emotions. You want to be hard on the problem, but soft on the people. The second theory is focus on interests and not positions. There's once 2 kids and 1 orange, and each kid wanted the orange. The mother cut the orange in half, gave each kid half the orange, and what happened was one kid ate the fruit and threw away the peel. The other kid used the peel and for cooking and then threw away the fruit. Now, if the mother figured out what the interest was, each kid could have had the whole of what they were looking for. The third one is inventing options for mutual gain. The more options you have, the better you can come up with solutions that are going to work for everybody. And the 4th criteria is using objective criteria. We have a law, the Girl Scout law. Use that. Kelly Blue Book. When you go to trade in your car, you use Kelly Blue Book. We have our law. So use that. Many of you have had girls in the troop who are, could maybe bullies or hygiene issues. Remind them that we use the law, and we are a sister to every Girl Scout. And that is our objective criteria. That takes all the power out of, the power play, if there is a power play, because we're going based on one standard. So I'm going to have you get up and do an exercise. I want you to partner with someone, go in the middle of the room or in the back quickly, so we only have 5 minutes before our next presenter. So everyone get up and find a partner. Maybe you sit down. Okay, now stand face to face with one another, wherever you're at. Okay. Do you have a partner? Who's missing a partner? We have a partnerless leader. Okay, come over here. We have one. She's up in the front. All right, your job is to get the person who's opposite of you, convince them to get to your side. Negotiate. Throw in your mother, throw in $1 million, whatever you want to do, just fight. The goal is to get you go to her side, fight. That's the point. Try to resolve that. Go. No issue. There's no issue, just the goal is to get you to come to the side. All right, ladies. Who got the $1 million? Who won? What'd you do? What'd you share, the $1 million? Very good. Okay. You ready for the answer on how to get the person to the other side? Switch sides. You go on, now you both got what you want, right? Your goal was the goal was to get them to the other side. It didn't say that you had to stay on your side while they stayed on their side. You just switch sides and you both get what you want. Do you understand? You work together, you have the same goal. Just move to the other side. So in summary, there are 5 steps to conflict resolution. You want to make the approach. You want to reflect before you begin. Invite the party to the others to a conversation. Be clear about your intentions. State your goal, which is a positive resolution. Step 2, share your perspective. Ask for the other person's perspective. Paraphrase what you hear, acknowledge your part in it, and describe your perspective, all in neutral language. The third thing is name your issues. Identify the topics. Identify what are the issues that you want to deal with. Avoid pronouns, and you want to create the agenda of how to get to a resolution. The fourth step is to build understanding and agree on solutions. Discuss one issue at a time. Don't mix all these different things. Just focus on one thing at a time. Build those small yeses. Clarify assumptions. Explore your interests and the feelings. And then once you have a resolution, you want to do a reality test. Is it doable? Is this durable? Does it meet all parties' interests? Your goal is to make them happy. That's how you resolve conflict. You don't want to lose yourself, but if they are happy, that conflict now dissipates. So that is your goal, is be someone who stands for the girls, someone who says, all right, let's put the girls ahead, and if they walk away happy, the conflict is over. If they're not happy, that conflict just comes right back at you. It's not going away. The last step is to create an action plan jointly. Put it in writing. I'm a big in writing person. And it could just be a very easy, thank you so much for talking to me. I am so glad, blah, blah, blah. This is how we're going to move forward with all this stuff. Make that structure. If you have a conflict that you want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about it. Put it on the thing. We could talk about it at a panel or come up and ask questions. All right? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. Lots of great information and techniques, tips, resolutions, ways to solve issues going forward, whether it's yourself and a troop parent or your troop co-leader, maybe a personal situation. Thank you very much, Dana.